I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. I mean, when I first met Jessica, we were both young and carefree, living for the moment, chasing dreams like we were invincible. We were both musicians, bound by our love for music and each other. I was the lead guitarist in a local band, and she was our self-proclaimed biggest fan. We fell in love during late-night jam sessions and spontaneous trips to the beach, and I thought we'd be together forever. But as it turns out, forever can be a fragile illusion. Things started to change about a year ago. At first, it was subtle. Jessica began coming home late from her girls' nights out. I brushed it off, thinking she just needed a break from our routine. I mean, we were both busy with our lives. She was working full-time at a marketing firm, and I was trying to make a name for myself in the local music scene. However, her excuses started to feel strained. The more I let it slide, the more I felt something was off. I'd catch her texting late at night, and when I peeked at her phone, she'd quickly close the screen. Suspicion gnawed at me, but I tried to suppress it. I didn't want to be that guy who jumped to conclusions without evidence. It all came crashing down one Saturday night. We had a gig at a local bar, and I was stoked. We had worked hard on our new set list, and the vibe in the band was electric. Just before I went on stage, I noticed Jessica wasn't in the crowd. I figured she was just running late. After all, she loved watching me perform. But as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. When I finished my set, I walked off stage and saw my bandmate Ethan chatting with her outside. At first, I was just relieved she made it. But then I noticed the way they were standing close, their laughter too intimate for two friends. The knot in my stomach tightened. I had always trusted Ethan. He was like a brother to me. But as I approached, I overheard a snippet of their conversation. Jessica said something I never thought I'd hear from her. "You know, I've been wanting you for a while now." I froze. The world around me blurred as I processed her words. My heart raced, and I felt a rush of heat and anger flood my veins. I could feel my face burning, and before I knew it, I was storming over, my hands clenched into fists. "What the hell is going on here?" I shouted, my voice echoing in the night air. Jessica turned, her expression shifting from surprise to annoyance. "Oh, come on, James. Don't make a scene," she said dismissively, as if my heart was just a petty concern next to her ego. Ethan looked like a deer caught in the headlights, and all I could see was betrayal etched all over his face. "What do you mean, don't make a scene? You're telling my best friend that you've been wanting him. You've been cheating on me." My voice was shaky, but the anger surged. She had to know what she was doing. Jessica rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. "It's not cheating if we're basically roommates at this point, James. You're always gone with your band, and I needed something more." If her words were a punch to the gut, I was breathless. I felt every syllable echo in my mind like a taunt. "So this is how you repay me, by lying and cheating. Don't act so surprised," she shot back, her tone dripping with a mix of defiance and entitlement. "You've been so absorbed in your music that you've neglected me. I had to find comfort somewhere." I felt the anger morph into something deeper, an all-consuming sadness. How had we let it get this far? I never expected Jessica, the love of my life, to betray me like this. With that realization, my world fell apart. And from that moment on, everything changed. I had to figure out how to move forward with this shattered mess. I felt the urge for revenge bubbling inside me, but I didn't know how to channel it just yet. All I knew was that I couldn't let this end without some kind of payback, not just for her, but also for me. I took a deep breath, knowing that my life was about to take a drastic turn. I wanted to make her hear my music, my success, everywhere, and I would do it without her. The days following that disastrous confrontation felt like I was walking through a fog. I had always prided myself on being resilient, but this was different. I was heartbroken, angry, and humiliated. Jessica had shattered the trust we had built over years, and the realization hit me like a truck. I thought about how many nights I had spent writing songs, dreaming of success, all while believing she was my biggest supporter. To find out she had been with Ethan, my bandmate, felt like a betrayal that cut deeper than anything else. During that time, I was a mess. My bandmates noticed something was off. I was supposed to be focused on our upcoming gigs, but I was barely present. I could see the concern in their eyes, but the last thing I wanted was to explain the turmoil I was going through. I would smile and shrug it off, claiming I was just tired or had writer's block. I spent hours alone at home, replaying that confrontation in my mind. I felt like I was losing part of myself. It was more than just the betrayal. It was the way Jessica dismissed my feelings as if they didn't matter. I remember staring at my guitar, the instrument that once brought me so much joy, and feeling disconnected from it. But then one evening something shifted. I picked it up, and instead of trying to write love songs, I let my emotions pour out in raw, unfiltered lyrics about heartbreak, betrayal, and revenge. That was the moment I decided to channel my pain into my music. I didn't want to sulk in self-pity. I wanted to rise from the ashes like a phoenix. I started crafting songs that reflected my emotional journey, pouring everything I had into my writing. I wanted to make music that not only resonated with me but also spoke to others who had experienced similar heartbreak. It was cathartic, and it ignited a fire in me that I hadn't felt in a long time. As the weeks went by, I began to write prolifically. I was no longer just a member of a band. I was becoming a solo artist with a story to tell. My lyrics became sharper, more compelling, and I could feel my passion for music returning. I started recording demos in my small home studio, working late into the night. I was determined to create something powerful. I wanted Jessica to hear my success everywhere, to realize what she had lost. I knew I had to distance myself from the band for a while. It was painful to think about, but I couldn't bear the sight of Ethan, knowing what he had done. I explained to my bandmates that I needed some time to focus on my solo work. They were supportive, albeit concerned. They could see how much I had changed, how I was driven by a newfound purpose. One night I decided to post a teaser of my new music on social media, something I hadn't done before. I wanted to create buzz, to make people curious about what I was working on. I knew Jessica would see it. The moment I hit post, my heart raced. I could only imagine her reaction. Would she feel guilty, regret? I didn't care. All I wanted was for her to realize the consequences of her actions. As the likes and comments started rolling in, I felt a sense of validation. People were excited about my music, and I began to build a following in the local scene. It was exhilarating, and I could feel myself coming alive again. I began booking small gigs around town, performing my new songs and connecting with audiences who felt my pain and resonated with my lyrics. But even as I started to find my footing, Jessica's voice echoed in my mind. I remembered her dismissive tone, her casual betrayal. I wanted her to hear my music, to understand what she had done. I would make sure that my success was inescapable for her. I planned my next move. I reached out to a few local producers who had expressed interest in my music. I shared my demos, and to my surprise, they were impressed. They saw potential and wanted to work with me. I felt a rush of excitement. This was my moment. I knew that once I recorded a full album, it would be impossible for Jessica to ignore my progress. It was time to pay her back in the best way I knew how. I would become a success without her, and my music would be the soundtrack of her regret. I could already envision the future, where she would hear my songs on the radio or see my name in lights, and I couldn't help but smile. This was my journey now, and I was ready to embrace it completely. I was determined to rebuild my life, one song at a time, and I wouldn't stop until I had created something truly unforgettable. I was ready to reclaim my narrative and ensure that Jessica would hear my success echoing everywhere she went. I could feel the excitement building inside me as I set my plans into motion. As I dove deeper into my new solo project, I found myself consumed by the creative process. Each day felt like a new opportunity to explore my emotions through music. I was no longer just writing. I was crafting an entire narrative about heartbreak, betrayal, and resilience. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my identity and my voice. Each song became a piece of me, a cathartic release of everything I had experienced. I began to play more gigs, performing my new material. The response was overwhelming. People resonated with my lyrics, stories of love gone wrong, of deceit and pain, but also of empowerment and growth. I could see the emotional impact it had on my audiences. They connected with the raw honesty of my music, and that fueled my fire even more. I was no longer just a struggling musician. I was becoming someone who had something to say, and that felt powerful. The more I performed, the more I wanted to push myself. I reached out to local music festivals, hoping to snag some slots to play. I wanted to reach a wider audience to make my mark in the music scene. I was determined to create a buzz, and I started promoting my shows relentlessly on social media. I wanted Jessica to see me thriving, to see what she had thrown away. I wanted her to realize that I was better off without her. But then came the unexpected twist. One night, while I was performing at a local bar, I spotted a familiar face in the crowd. There was Jessica, standing at the back, her arms crossed, a mixture of anger and disbelief on her face. I had been so engrossed in my performance that I hadn't even noticed her walk in. The sight of her brought a rush of emotions, anger, sadness, and a hint of satisfaction. I had been waiting for this moment. As I strummed the guitar and sang about betrayal and resilience, I could feel the weight of her gaze upon me. I poured my heart into the performance, knowing she was listening. Each note felt like a message directly aimed at her. I could see her shift uncomfortably as my lyrics cut through the air, every word laced with the pain I had endured. After the show, I saw her waiting near the exit, her expression a mix of nerves and defiance. As I walked off stage, I steeled myself for the confrontation. "James," she called out, her voice shaky. "Can we talk?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to turn away, to let her stew in her regret, but another part of me wanted to confront her, to show her the man I had become. I nodded, and we stepped outside into the cool night air. "Look, I didn't know you were performing tonight," she began, her bravado wavering. "I didn't come here to start trouble. I just wanted to see how you were doing." "Really? Is that why you showed up, to check up on me?" I asked, crossing my arms. "Because it looks more like you were here to see if your betrayal was worth it." Face flushed. "This isn't fair, James. You know I've been struggling too. I wasn't the only one who made mistakes." "Struggling? Is that your excuse? You cheated on me with my bandmate while I was trying to build something for us. You could have talked to me. You could have been honest." "I was afraid you wouldn't understand." She shot back, her voice rising. "You never had time for me. Because I was working, Jessica. I was trying to make something of myself, and you threw it all away for a fling." "I didn't mean for it to happen, it just did," she pleaded, frustration evident in her voice. "I thought we were done. Done. You gave up on us the moment you decided to sleep with Ethan. That's not something you just slip into. That's a choice." Her expression softened, and I could see a flicker of regret in her eyes. "I know I'm sorry, I messed up, but you have to see that I wanted you to be successful too. I was just lost." "Lost? That's your excuse. You didn't even try to fight for our relationship," I replied, feeling the anger boil inside me. "You could have called me. You could have done anything other than cheat." "I know. I wish I could take it back," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it's too late for us now, isn't it?" I stared at her, that moment hanging in the air between us. I realized she wasn't the same person I had fallen in love with. That girl had vanished along with the trust we shared. "Yeah, it is. I'm not the same guy either." For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness for what we once had, but it quickly dissipated. I was moving forward, and I had no intention of looking back. Jessica had made her choice, and now I was making mine. "I wish you the best, but I'm done," I said finally, turning to walk away. I could almost hear the faint notes of my music echoing in the background, a reminder of my journey and my newfound purpose. I was ready to let go. As I stepped back into the bar, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was ready to embrace my future and share my story with the world. Jessica would hear my success everywhere, whether she wanted to or not, and I was determined to make it a success she would never forget. After that confrontation with Jessica, I felt a strange sense of clarity wash over me. I had confronted the ghost of my past and laid the groundwork for my future. There was no turning back now. I was committed to my path as a solo artist, and nothing would derail me. I threw myself into my music with a renewed fervor, determined to make a name for myself in a way I never had before. The next few months were a whirlwind. I recorded my first solo EP, pouring all my emotions into every song. The tracks became a soundtrack to my healing, reflecting anger, heartache, and ultimately, empowerment. I worked tirelessly in the studio, collaborating with talented musicians and producers who believed in my vision. It was exhilarating. Every time I entered the studio, I felt like I was reclaiming a piece of myself that Jessica had tried to take from me. The producers I worked with could see the passion in my eyes. They pushed me to dig deeper and explore new sounds. I experimented with different styles, blending rock, folk, and even a touch of electronic. I wanted my music to be a reflection of my journey, and I was excited to share it with the world. While the recording process was demanding, it was also liberating. I finally felt in control of my life and my narrative. One of the producers, Mark, suggested that we release a single before the EP, a song that really captured the essence of my experience. We worked late nights, refining the sound until it felt just right, a powerful anthem about moving on and finding strength after betrayal. When the single was ready, we launched a social media campaign to promote it. I was nervous but also exhilarated. This was my chance to shine. The night we released it, I hosted a small listening party at a local venue. Friends, family, and the band members I still trusted showed up to support me. I performed the new single live for the first time, and the energy in the room was electric. As I played, I could see people connecting with my lyrics. They were feeling what I had felt: heartbreak but also hope. The crowd cheered, and I felt like I was finally stepping into my own as an artist. I caught glimpses of familiar faces in the audience, but it was no longer Jessica's presence that mattered. It was the validation I received from everyone else that fueled my determination. In the days following the release, things started to snowball. The single gained traction on social media, and local radio stations picked it up for airplay. I started receiving messages from fans who related to my story, sharing their own experiences of betrayal and heartbreak. It was incredibly cathartic to hear that my music was resonating with others. I was no longer just a guy nursing a broken heart. I was becoming a voice for many. Of course, I knew Jessica was following my progress. My single was everywhere, and I made sure to share snippets online regularly. Each time I posted, I felt a mix of triumph and satisfaction, knowing she couldn't escape the reality of my success. I heard through mutual friends that she had been visibly upset, but also strangely proud of the music I was creating. That pride, however, didn't change anything. For me, I was unapologetically moving forward. I began booking more gigs, and soon I was performing at larger venues, sometimes even alongside well-known local artists. I was gaining attention, and it felt intoxicating. I was building a brand that was authentically me, and it was thrilling. But with success came new challenges. As I became more recognized, I had to navigate the complexities of the music industry, dealing with booking agents, contracts, and promotional strategies. It was overwhelming at times, but I welcomed the challenge. I was learning how to advocate for myself, to stand my ground, and to make decisions that aligned with my vision. One night after a particularly successful show, I was celebrating with my bandmates at a bar. We were laughing, recounting the highlights of the performance, and discussing our plans for the upcoming gigs. The vibe was electric. Everyone was excited about the future, and I felt the camaraderie that had initially drawn me to music. As I sipped my drink, I glanced around the room, and for a brief moment I caught sight of Jessica again. She was sitting at the bar, her eyes locked on me. This time, there was no anger or defiance in her gaze. Instead, there was an expression I hadn't seen in a while: longing. It was as if she was trying to reconcile the man I had become with the memories of the past we once shared. I felt a surge of emotions: anger, sadness, and a touch of nostalgia, but it was fleeting. I had moved on, and this was my moment. I realized that I could no longer allow her presence to affect me. I was no longer the man she had betrayed. I was a new version of myself, one who had risen from the ashes. After a while, I decided to approach her. I wanted to address whatever unresolved tension lingered between us. "Hey, Jessica," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "How have you been?" She looked up, surprise flickering across her features. "I've been okay, I guess. I heard your single. It's amazing, James. You've really found your sound." "Thanks," I replied, my heart racing. It feels good to finally be doing this on my own terms. I'm glad, she said, her voice softening. I never meant to hurt you. I don't know, I was lost. And I made terrible choices. I know, I said, feeling a mix of sympathy and frustration. But you have to understand that what happened changed everything for me. I'm not the same person I was when we were together. I can see that, she admitted, biting her lip. You've really grown, James. I'm proud of you. Proud after everything. My voice was sharper than I intended. I don't know if that makes it right. I get it. I messed up and I can't take it back. But I still care about you, she said, her eyes earnest. I hope you know that. I appreciate that, but caring doesn't erase the hurt. I'm moving forward, Jessica. I want you to know that you'll hear my music everywhere, and that's part of my healing. I understand, she said, her expression turning more serious. I just hope you find what you're looking for. As I walked away, I felt a mix of closure and resolve. I was ready to embrace this new chapter of my life fully. I had transformed my pain into something beautiful, and no matter where my journey took me, I knew I would always carry the lessons of the past with me. My music would echo in her ears, and she would know that I was thriving without her. It was time to finish the story I had begun, and I knew the best was yet to come. As I continued to build my solo career, every day felt like a new opportunity to make my mark. The months rolled on, and the momentum was undeniable. My single climbed the local music charts, and I started receiving invitations to play at more prominent venues and festivals. I was living the dream that once seemed so far out of reach. I poured everything I had into the music. The more I performed, the more I understood what it meant to connect with an audience. I was no longer just sharing my story. I was crafting a community of people who resonated with my journey. Each show was an emotional release for both me and my fans. I met so many incredible people who shared their own stories of heartbreak and healing, and it reminded me that I was not alone in my struggles. But amidst all this growth, there was always a shadow of Jessica lingering in my mind. I had moved on, but I couldn't completely escape the memories of our past. Whenever I performed, I often glanced to the back of the room, half expecting to see her. I wanted to know if she felt any regret or remorse, but I couldn't let that consume me. My focus had to remain on my music and the people who believed in me. Then came the moment I had been waiting for, an opportunity to perform at a major music festival in the city. It was a big deal, and I knew it could be a defining moment for my career. The festival lineup featured several well-known artists, and I was excited but nervous. I had to make a lasting impression. In the days leading up to the festival, I rehearsed relentlessly. My bandmates were supportive, and we worked together to ensure our set was polished and powerful. We wanted to leave everything on stage. The night before the festival, I couldn't sleep. I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety coursing through me. This was my chance to showcase my music on a larger platform, and I was determined to make it count. When the day finally arrived, the atmosphere at the festival was electric. The energy of the crowd was contagious, and I could feel the adrenaline pumping through my veins as I prepared to take the stage. As I stood backstage, I watched the other performers, each one captivating the audience in their own unique way. I knew I had to step up my game. When it was finally my turn, I took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The lights were blinding, and the roar of the crowd was deafening. I could see a sea of faces, all eager to hear what I had to offer. As I strummed the first chords of my opening song, I felt a surge of confidence wash over me. I poured my heart and soul into the performance, delivering each lyric with conviction. I could sense the connection with the audience. They were hanging on every word, feeling the emotions I had channeled into the music. The energy was infectious, and it fueled me to give everything I had. Halfway through the set, I decided to play my single, the one that had garnered so much attention. As I sang those familiar lyrics, I scanned the crowd, hoping to see familiar faces. And then there she was, Jessica, standing near the front, her eyes glistening with tears. In that moment, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a strange sense of closure. I continued to sing, but I couldn't shake the sight of her. I wondered what she was thinking, what memories were flooding her mind as she listened. Was she feeling regret? Did she realize that she had lost something valuable? Or was she simply another face in the crowd? After my set, I stepped off stage, still buzzing from the performance. The response was incredible and I felt on top of the world. But as I tried to celebrate with my band, I spotted Jessica waiting just outside the backstage area. My heart raced. I had half expected this moment, but now that it was happening, I wasn't sure how to react. "James," she called out, her voice cutting through the noise of the festival. "Can we talk?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to brush her off, to remind her of everything that had happened. But another part of me was curious. I knew I had grown, and maybe this conversation could bring some closure. "Okay," I said, leading her away from the crowd, finding a quieter spot near the edge of the venue. "I was blown away by your performance," she said, her eyes wide with a mix of admiration and vulnerability. "You've truly become something incredible." "Thanks," I replied, my tone cautious. "I appreciate that. I've been following your journey since everything happened. I'm really proud of how you've turned your pain into something beautiful," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. "Proud? You think that makes it okay?" I asked, frustration creeping back in. "You threw our relationship away, Jessica. It's not that simple." "I know, and I'm sorry. I've had to face a lot of hard truths. I've seen you succeed, and it's made me realize how badly I messed up," she admitted, her eyes welling with tears. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just didn't know how to communicate what I was feeling." "Communicate? You chose to cheat instead," I shot back, anger bubbling to the surface. "You had every opportunity to talk to me, too. Be honest, but you decided to betray me instead." "I was scared," she said, her voice cracking. "I didn't know how to handle the pressure of our lives at the time. I thought I could find happiness elsewhere, and I was wrong." "You were wrong, and now I have to live with that," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I'm not the same person I was. I've grown. I've built something for myself, and I'm not going to let you take that away from me." "I understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just wanted you to know that I'm truly sorry. I regret everything, and I wish I could take it back." For a moment, I felt a twinge of sadness. The girl I had fallen in love with was standing in front of me, but she was no longer the person I wanted in my life. I had moved on. I had to. "I appreciate the apology, but we can't go back to what we had. I'm moving forward, and I hope you can find your own way too," I said firmly. Jessica nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I just hope you know that I'll always support you from afar. You deserve to be happy, James. I see that now." As I walked away, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I had confronted my past, and while it wasn't easy, it was necessary. I was ready to embrace the future I had worked so hard to build, and I knew that Jessica would never be a part of it again. I felt lighter, unburdened by the weight of our shared history. My music was my future, and I was determined to let it carry me forward, all the way to success. As the festival came to a close, I took a moment to soak in everything that had happened. It felt surreal to be standing there, having performed in front of a crowd that had cheered, sung along, and shared in my journey. I had faced my past, embraced my present, and was ready to charge into the future. The atmosphere pulsed with excitement, and I could feel the energy of the audience still lingering in the air. The following weeks flew by as the momentum from the festival continued to build. My single climbed higher on the charts, and the buzz around my music grew louder. I received offers to collaborate with other artists and invitations to perform at even bigger events. It was exhilarating to think that my hard work was finally paying off. I felt an overwhelming sense of purpose as I moved forward, motivated to create more music that spoke to my experiences and resonated with others. But as I embraced this newfound success, I also took the time to reflect on my emotional journey. I had learned so much about myself, not just as a musician, but as a person. The betrayal from Jessica had forced me to confront my vulnerabilities and insecurities. It had pushed me to dig deep and discover the strength I never knew I had. I realized that I could turn pain into art, and that realization was powerful. One evening, while I was in the studio working on new material, I received a message that made my heart skip a beat. It was from a record label that had been following my progress. They wanted to meet. This was the moment I had been working toward, the chance to take my music to the next level on a national scale. My heart raced with excitement, and I felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. When the meeting day arrived, I walked into the label's office with a sense of purpose. I presented my music, sharing the story behind each song, the emotions that fueled my writing. The executives listened intently, and as I wrapped up, I could see their enthusiasm building. They wanted to sign me, to help me distribute my music to a wider audience. It was the validation I had been waiting for, and I felt a surge of triumph. As I left the meeting that day, I couldn't help but think of Jessica. The past few months had been a whirlwind of emotions and growth, and I wanted her to know that I had found my way without her. I had taken her betrayal and transformed it into something beautiful, something that could inspire others. It was bittersweet, but I knew it was time to close that chapter for good. As I prepared for the next stage of my career, I made a conscious decision to keep pushing myself creatively. I wanted to explore new sounds and themes, to delve even deeper into my emotions. My upcoming album would reflect not only the pain of my past, but also the hope and resilience I had discovered along the way. It was important for me to share this journey with my fans, to show them that healing was possible even after the darkest moments. When the album was finally ready for release, I planned a launch party that would showcase my new music. I invited friends, family, and loyal supporters who had been with me since the beginning. The night of the event felt electric. As I took the stage, I could see familiar faces in the crowd, and I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. I had come so far, and I was ready to share this new chapter of my life. As I performed my new songs, I poured my heart into every lyric, every chord. The crowd responded with enthusiasm, singing along and cheering loudly. This time I was surrounded by people who believed in me, who understood the journey I had taken. I felt a sense of community that filled the void that Jessica had left behind. After the performance, as I mingled with guests, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. My past, with all its heartache and betrayal, had shaped me, but it no longer defined me. I was a new man, a successful musician with a voice and a story to share. I was ready to embrace the future, to continue creating music that resonated with others. And then, just as I was soaking in the moment, I spotted Jessica across the room. She was talking to someone, but her eyes met mine, and for a moment, everything else faded away. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, but it was different this time. I was no longer consumed by anger or sadness. I had moved past that. As the night continued, we ended up crossing paths again. "Congratulations," she said with a genuine smile, her eyes shining. "I'm so proud of you. This is incredible." "Thanks," I replied, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. "It feels good to finally be where I'm meant to be." "I can see that." "I just wanted to say I'm sorry again," she said, her voice earnest. "I messed up, and I hope someday you can forgive me." I took a moment to consider her words. "I appreciate that, Jessica, I really do, but understanding is all I can offer now. I've moved on, and I hope you find your own path too." She nodded, a mixture of relief and sadness on her face. "I wish you the best, James, you deserve it." As I walked away, I felt lighter than ever. This was it, the closure I needed. I had transformed my pain into something beautiful, and I was living proof that resilience could triumph over heartbreak. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that my music would continue to tell my story. In the end, I realized that betrayal might have been the catalyst for my growth, but it was my determination, my passion, and my love for music that propelled me forward. My journey was just beginning, and I was ready to face the world with open arms, my heart healed and my spirit unbreakable.